I'm absolutely delighted to have heard the different musics of the different accents and also the different cries from the heart, right? And the different places. I come from Belgium in Europe. I emigrated here because it is about where we come from in our languages. When I was 46 years old, I just want to make a very quick parenthesis, but you'll understand a lot by this parenthesis. I don't know if you've heard, but there's a city in Germany called Dresden that has, installed a state of alarm because the Nazi movement is so overwhelming that the city of Dresden doesn't know what to do anymore. And this is, take a look at it. I mean, look at it online, because it's important that we know that it's extremely dangerous. And that this movement is not dead, as you know. So Dresden, Belgium, my parents, my father, Nazi collaborator, my mother completely supporting, Jew-hating, Zigan-hating. If they were here today, anything but not, hating anything that wasn't white and blue-eyed. I was raised in a nunnery because I wasn't a boy, so my parents put me in an orphanage. And when I was 3.5, almost 4 years old, they put me in this orphanage. And I grew up in a white orphanage where only Catholics were accepted. So that was yet another step of segregation and of, putting people in niches and putting people in categories. And then I couldn't stand it anymore, and I couldn't stand the small-mindedness of Europe, and so I decided to emigrate to America, and guess what I found? What I want to do today is sing my language and sing the two languages I was brought in, but I also want to sing the fact that there are so many good people in this country, and that we really need to vote, and we really need to convince our students and anybody to go vote and to stop this hatred and this upcoming of the Nazi movement and this racism, because the beauty of the difference creates is a richness. And if you take away difference and if you level everything, it is mediocrity and boredom. So, I'm sorry, I needed to say that because it was heavy on my heart. I come from Belgium, in which you speak two languages, and I'm going to sing those two languages to you today, because today we are also singing other languages, and the Spanish, what a music there is in there. And I'm going to start by reading a poem I translated with my husband. I translated a book of Flemish poetry, and Flemish is one of the two languages that we speak in Belgium. And it is the 14th in line of disappearing languages. So, very soon nobody will speak Flemish anymore. So it's maybe important for you to hear. It's a very musical, very lovely language. And it's a short poem. I will... what do you want me to do? Read it in Flemish first or in English first? Because I translate Flemish first. Okay. It's a poem entitled Moeder. What do you think moeder means? Yes! Okay. Moeder. Wat jij met de tijd doet, is wat een oude grootmoeders klok ermee doet. 12 uur slaan en daar alle tijd voor nemen. Jij bent de klok, de tijd gaat voorbij, maar jij blijft, jij wacht. Wachten is wat een tuin overkomt onder sneeuw, een boomstam onder de mos, hoop op betere tijden in de 19e eeuw, woorden voor een gedicht. Want poëzie heeft te maken met het langzame laten beschimmelen van dingen. Het alcohol laten worden van druiven. Het confijten van feiten. Het inmaken van woorden in de kelder van jezelf. Mother. Thank you. Mother. What you do with time is what a grandmother clock does with it. Strike 12 and take its time doing it. You're the clock. Time passes. You remain and wait. For wait is what happens to a snow-covered garden, a trunk under moss, hope for better times in the 19th century, or words in a poem. For poetry is about letting things grow moldy together, like grapes turning into wine, reality into preserves, and hoarding words in the cellar of yourself. And the second language spoken in Belgium is French. And because I spoke of resistance and because I spoke of stopping wars and stopping segregation and stopping all that mediocrity of the soul, I'm going to read not the whole poem because it's long, but it's a protest song by Boris Vian, who protests against the war and who writes a letter to the president. And so I'll read a part of it in French and then the 3 or 4 stanzas in English. Le déserteur. Monsieur le Président, je vous fais une lettre que vous lirez peut-être si vous avez le temps. Je viens de recevoir mes papiers militaires pour partir à la guerre avant mercredi soir. Monsieur le Président, je ne veux pas la faire. Je ne suis pas sur terre pour tuer les pauvres gens. C'est pas pour vous fâcher, mais il faut que je vous dise, ma décision est prise. Je m'en vais déserter. The deserter. Mr. President, I'm writing you this letter. Perhaps you'll get to read it if you can find the time. For I have just received my military papers, sending me to the front before Wednesday night. But, Mr. President, I do not want to go. I wasn't made to kill poor, innocent people. I hope you won't be angry by reading this confession. My decision is made. I'm going to desert. I loved hearing Alice and you, Maria. Keep writing the way you're writing. It's important that you are heard. And I heard you loud and clear. This is a song that I wrote to my country, which is flat and tiny. Belgium is as big as Maryland, so you know it ain't a big place. And there's the port that enters the North Sea is the port of Antwerp in Belgium. And where the North Sea and the Scheldt River meet, there are huge, sweet, salty marshes that are also tidal marshes. So at a certain moment, the river water and the ocean water come together, and then the tide pulls the water back and then comes back. And so there's a smell there. There's a rotting fish, moist, goopy, muddy smell there. And I decided that I was going to write about it because everything is not poetic. So this is called Ode to the Schorren, and the Schorren is the name of that place. Ode to the Schorren, and their skin-thin silt, the Scheldt ground down from rocks, slopes, and swamps, that rainy day grey mud, a satin mug that slips through fingers and escapes toward the insatiable North Sea. Neptune was born there, a farmer told me, in that estuary where the sky is so low you can sip it from your lips. No horizon, not a farm or field or path, only unbound marshes moored under the constant giggle of cloud ghosting gulls. It's this sludge, marsh-soaked, that the winds whistle to and wrinkle, braiding pickleweed and widgeon grass, where cat-sized muskrats shriek and pull birds down into the sludge by their feet. Everything there is sopped with everything. Salt with light, light with silt, silt with clouds, clouds with rain, and sloughs with rot and slime. But in the spring, when the gray clouds swell high in the air, sun shafts dive, sudden and brilliant, deep into the gullies' throats. And if you wait long enough, right there, out of the vaguely swaying sedge, you'll hear it, the soar of the marsh warbler's song. And it's then that you'll press both hands to your heart, both hands to your heart. And I'm going to read one more poem. It has to do with my father being a Nazi collaborator. It has to do of being a. It has to do with being the child. I was born in 1943. Don't start calculating. I'm 76. And being the child of Nazi collaborators during the war and hearing all the war stories, etc. And it's a poem about Thanksgiving. There is no Thanksgiving in Belgium. So when I came to America, Thanksgiving was something completely strange to me, and I came here when I was 46. So I'll read this poem for you. I want you to know that miserere is a Latin term for have pity. And you say that in Catholic Mass, miserere nobis, which means have pity on us. And I think... Oh, and I wrote this before the year 2000, just at the eve of the year 2000. And I lived in Colorado with the love of my life, the poet Kurt Brown, who passed away in 2013. So this poem is called Inventory. Thanksgiving today, soaked with sleet. No sun for 6 days, and 6 is the devil's number. I have looked through this window at these American skies for 2 times 6 years. My wall is covered with photographs of distant friends. This is my 3rd garden. The first 2 blossomed in Belgium, where there is no Thanksgiving, where my father is buried, where I was raised and raped and worked, where I had 5 lovers but loved only 1, where I gave birth to 3 children, a blonde son, a dead daughter, a blonde daughter. Shadows grew in my first garden, 2 larches in my second. Because of North Sea winds and how they stood, they fused into one trunk. It wounded them at first, that rubbing together, the frailest larch losing sap for months, a lucid sap that glued them to each other at last. And I saw this as an omen to my life. I give thanks for the lowlands in Belgium, for Flanders, her canals and taciturn skies. For the tall ships on the river Schelde, for the coal pyramids in Wallonia, and for the color of hop and the hop pickers' songs, and for Antwerp's whores who woo sailors in 6 different tongues. And 6 is the devil's number. My grandfather and farmer killed 6 German soldiers and threw them in a Flemish moor. I can no longer give thanks for that. I ask mercy. Before I die, I'll plant a larch by that moor, miserere. The soldiers' mothers will never know it was done. I prayed 6 times for the death of my Jew-hating father. I ask mercy for that also. It's Thanksgiving today. I give thanks for my son and my daughter, for the man I love who taught me a new language, and for this garden's life and sleet. Before I left for this vast continent, I stole sand from the river Scheld, an inch of barbed wire from a concentration camp, a leaf from the chestnut tree behind Apollinaire's grave, but no weed, not a seed of it growing from my father's ashes. In Belgium, the day is almost over. This new century is already waging wars. 4 larches grow in my garden, 1 for my son, 1 for my daughter, and far from a moor in Flanders, the other 2 larches fuse here, in America, in America.